We just want to jump right in and, we want to celebrate this Palm Sunday. We don't want to let it go. This is where our Holy Week begins, is right here. Actually, it kind of began Friday night, like concert and all that stuff. So, but anyway, hey, listen, it started already. So we're in it. So go on this journey with us this week. This is why the Lord has laid out these sermons this week and next week. They're journey sermons. And to give you an example, I began a journey 14 and a half years ago with one of my granddaughters, BB. And so we've always been pretty tight and, kind of a Huna girl there. So she comes in yesterday and she says, Huna, I bought that's what she calls me, Huna. She says, I bought a Easter dress and I bought you a shirt to match my dress. Oh man, that's so awesome. TT didn't get one. So, I'm thinking, oh, that's so awesome. We're going to match. And she thought of me. And I got to thinking, did she buy that because she wanted me to match or she thinks what I'm wearing is pathetic? I think we're going to match. We're going to match. We're going to look good together. So, hey, listen, but it's a journey. We've been doing this together for 14 and a half years. We've been on this journey together and we love this journey. And you know what? We've been on this journey in this house for 12 years. And, we love what God's called us to. We love the work that God has called us to team together and to do and to set our hands to this good work, as Nehemiah said. And so listen, we want you to journey with us in this sermon today. So the Christian walk is a journey. I think sometimes when you're first coming to the Lord, you think that the salvational prayer is the destination. It's the beginning. That's where it starts. So let's just kind of look through this and let's journey through this sermon today and just know that we're on a journey with Christ and we're going through this with him this morning. So let's just begin in John chapter 11, verses 28 through 35. When she being Martha, the sister to Lazarus. Yeah. Where are you from? I'm from Lazarus. But the sister to Lazarus and Mary. So when she had said this, she went out and called for her sister Mary, the other sister, saying in private, the teacher's here, Jesus is here, and he's calling for you. Is that pretty cool or what? I mean, that's pretty cool. When you know that Jesus is there, but when you know he's calling specifically for you, it's pretty cool. In verse 29, and she went, and when she heard this, she rose quickly. She ran out to meet him. Now, Jesus had not yet come into the city, but he was still in a place where Martha had met him. So he was on his way in. When the Jews who were with her in the house consoling her saw that Mary rose quickly and she ran out, they followed her. They thought that she was going to the tomb of her brother to weep. And they went with her. So, they were supporting her. Sometimes you see somebody run out, you run out with them. Now, when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet, saying to him, Lord, if you had only been here, my brother would not have died. Let's detour here just a second on this journey. Here's the thing. They had only ever watched Jesus do miracles that were predictable in their eyes. They had watched Jesus heal somebody. They had watched Jesus do a lot of things, and they thought that death was final. So in other words, if you had been here, sometimes I think we cry out to the Lord, Lord, if you had only been here, then this vision would not have died. But instead, God's like, look, but you have no idea what I'm doing through the vision. Trust me and we'll resurrect it. So, but think about Lazarus being called forth. A friend of mine used to always say, the reason he said Lazarus come forth was because if he'd have said come forth, the whole cemetery would have cleaned out. So he had to make sure that only one guy heard it. So so Mary says, if you'd only been here, in other words, we're limiting what God can do in our lives. So if you'd only been here, when Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who had come with her, they were also weeping. He was deeply moved in his spirit and he was greatly troubled. We're going to look at this real quick in a few minutes. And he said, now, where have you laid him? And they said to him, come and see, we'll show you. In verse 35, Jesus wept. So the sermon today is between the tears. And this is tear number one. Jesus shed a tear. He cried at a funeral. It's okay to cry at a funeral. It's okay. So Luke chapter 19, let's look at tier number 2. Luke chapter 19, verse 41. When Jesus came closer, now what is happening here is we've got the palms waving. And we've got the entry, and we've got the triumphant atmosphere, and we've got the accolades, and we've got the shouts of Hosanna. We've got all of this, but Jesus is crying. When he ends this a little bit, when it begins to wind down, he looks closer and he could see Jerusalem, and he cried. So we're going to journey from the first tier to the last tier. So Jesus, he wept at his friend's funeral. Like we said, it's okay. But then again, he weeps at the celebration. See, sometimes we see that it's okay to weep here, but why is he weeping here? You know, we weep at death, but why am I weeping at the celebration? It's the only 2 places in Scripture that give account of Jesus' tears. Now, I'm sure he cried more. I'm sure his heart was broken more times, but these are the 2 that we have recorded, and one of them was at a death, and one of them was at a celebration. So most people, most scholars, I mean, digging in, diving, I'm kind of finding the general consensus is that this was about a 4-day journey. From the time that Jesus had this Lazarus experience to the time he had this palm waving experience. So it's about 4 days. So what can happen in 4 days? What kind of journey can we get? Can we sometimes endure in 4 days? What kind of journey can we celebrate, walk in 4 days? So we're going to take this journey with Jesus and find out what was between the tears that maybe we should learn from. What should we know from this? See, here's the thing. What should we apply to our lives? Learning and applying is 2 different things. When I was a kid, don't touch that fence, that electric fence. I touched the electric fence. I learned not to touch it, but I didn't apply that to my life till the 4th or 5th time. I'm telling you, I was about, it's probably about that big and dark. And one guy explained to me, he said, I remember you were always that little dark little boy. And so, it's like, hey, listen, I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm going to touch it again. I mean, it's like, I'm really going to do this. And he's like, pow, and it's like, why did I do that? And then and then you get your friend, hey, touch that. Yeah. So the thing is, it's not going to hurt you, trust me. But what can we learn and what can we apply? Because you know what? Sometimes we have to apply what we learn. We really need to walk in what God is doing. So here's the first tier. The first tier is this. It happened in Bethany. Now, Bethany is a place that's a special place. Actually, Christpoint Church almost was called Bethany, but it was just kind of old-fashioned. I was afraid that we would be a little old-fashioned. I just love Bethany. I've always been a Bethany student, just love it. But Jesus had 3 friends at Bethany. These friends were not disciples. I think sometimes we just think they were part of the clan. They weren't disciples. They weren't part of the 12. They were Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, brother and sisters. They lived there. See, here's what I think is so important for us to know. You don't have to be the pastor to have a close relationship with Jesus. The pastor does not have a closer relationship with Jesus than anybody can have. There's a man that leads and organized and envisioned Samaritan's Purse, Franklin Graham. You can have as deep a relationship with Jesus as he does, or his father did. You know what? That's what's so awesome about this story. This is the place that Jesus wanted to be. And no disciples lived there. So it was where he wanted to be. So I asked the question, why did Jesus love Lazarus and Mary and Martha so much? Why was this place in Bethany the place that he had to escape from? He didn't long to be in Jerusalem. He didn't long to be in Bethsaida. He didn't long to be in these places, but he longed to be in Bethany. And here's the reason why. I think it's the purest form of church that we can find. It had what I call the big 4: hospitality, connection, worship, and Jesus. Think about it. We do a lot of things at Christpoint Church. This week's going to be full, completely full. We do a lot of things, but you know what? If we take one of these elements out, it's not who we are. It's not our DNA. Walk in here and we've put up all the refreshments and the coffee and everything. And you're like, well, I'm going to go to church somewhere else. It's just our DNA. But walk in here and we've not allowed for Jesus to be here, and we're going to all go somewhere else. So we're going to draw that line real fast. So it's mentioned twice in this account that Jesus was deeply moved. He was grieved at their tears. The King James says he was groaned in spirit. So he saw Mary and her friends weeping, and he began to weep. So when we look at that, here's the thing, that when we break it down and we see that when Jesus was there and Mary and her friends came and they were weeping, it is broken down as they were wailing loudly. They were groaning of spirit. They were wailing loudly. So in other words, everybody could hear them. You know, you all have a baby. When a baby cries, you know the baby's crying. It does not care that you don't. It's going to be loud. It doesn't care. Sometimes at funerals, people can be loud. They're wailing loudly. So it is appropriate. It's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way people demonstrate their grief. But when Jesus wept in verse 35, it's interpreted differently. This is how it's interpreted, that he wept quietly. Because here's the thing. Jesus is all God, but he's all man too. He shows us his humanity in his emotions, but he shows us his sonship and his godship in the fact that it is interpreted as weeping quietly. In other words, I'm not out of control. Jesus was never out of control. I mean, it would be hard to follow someone to that degree if you saw them break down and just unconsolable in the dirt. So Jesus was always in control. In our lives, Jesus is always in control. Even if we're out of control, he's always in control. So here's what's so cool is Jesus knew what they knew. You know what? We know what we know. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know. Well, we never know what we don't know, but sometimes figure that one out. But Jesus knew what they knew. They knew Lazarus was dead. He knew Lazarus was dead. So you know what? We're not reminding Jesus of anything when we say, you know how much money I need, don't you? He knows what you know. And this is my vision, Lord. This is my vision, and I need this vision to come to fruition. I need this vision, Lord. I know you know what I know. But see, Jesus knew what they didn't know. He knew he was about to raise Lazarus from the dead. Sometimes the vision in us or the dream in us may die because Jesus is about to resurrect it and make it better than it ever was. Because when Lazarus came out a little different than he went in. Think about it. When Lazarus went in, he was a friend of Jesus. He was a close a confidant of Jesus. He was a brother to Jesus. When he came out, he had life of Jesus in him. So sometimes we have to let something in us die so Jesus can resurrect it and be more of him and less of us. And you're like, wow, I didn't realize I had to get out of the way. So he knew, he knew in a few short moments that this whole mourning atmosphere was going to turn to laughter. It's like, okay, well, I didn't realize all that was about to happen, or I wouldn't have been crying. But notice that Jesus knew what they didn't know, but still he wept at what they did know. It still moved him to cry and to weep at their tears. Why would that be? Because I'm going to tell you, this is how personal God is with us. His heart breaks for what our heart breaks for. He just loves us that much. And him all the while knowing what is going to happen, but yet he still weeps because his heart breaks for what breaks ours. So let's just continue this journey from the first tier to the second tier. So what happened between those tiers? What happened between these emotional outbursts, so to speak, controlled outbursts? John chapter 11, verse 48. This is a gathering of the Pharisees. Jesus is doing his thing. Jesus is Jesus. Here's a good example. You and I are not going to make Jesus who he ain't. You know what I mean? We're not going to make Jesus who he's not. We're not going to mold him and fit him. That's not our job to do that. It's his job to do that to us. So we got a meeting of the Pharisees. Jesus is getting out of control. Verse 48, if we let him go on like this, everyone's going to believe in him. And then the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation. They're going to take away our place and our nation. Now they're under Roman occupation, and they're kind of like Rome has taken over the region, and they pay taxes, and they have Roman guards and stuff. So they're not. It's kind of like the Indians, and when the Indians, America was being settled, and Indians had to be pushed into. It's like, well, our lives have been wrapped around living free. Now you're putting us in a box, and so they're saying we're Israel, but we have to answer to you, and we have to. It's not right. So what they're saying is, if we let Jesus continue on like this, we're going to lose control. And the Romans are going to come in here, and they're going to take away our place. When they mention place, they're talking about the temple. The temple was actually their most important thing. It was their sacred cow. They were willing to give Jesus up to death in order to continue to have their temple. So in other words, we will let the Savior of mankind die just so we can control this. So we have this. And actually, by the time John is writing this gospel, the destruction of the temple has already happened. The destruction of Jerusalem has already happened. So they're not protecting it anyway. But see, we have such a need for control that we really want to eliminate whatever we're afraid of. So people saw Jesus raised from the dead. Lazarus raised from the dead by Jesus. They watched it. But then some scurried off to tell the Pharisees, did you know what's happening? I think you need to know what's happening. I'm just going to be honest with you. I've never watched somebody be risen from the dead. I've read about it, but I've never watched somebody. I'm not going, if I see somebody that's dead and the Lord raises them up, I'm not going to go tell the authorities that they need to be arrested. I'm going to be jumping up and down with them. Golly, this is awesome. So the Pharisees were afraid of Jesus because Jesus is being Jesus. Sometimes I think we're afraid to let Jesus be Jesus. See, when you're afraid of something, then your go-to is to eliminate the thing you're afraid of. I'll give you an example. You're walking along and there's a snake. You're afraid of a snake. So you're my wife, you're walking along and you see a snake and now you've soiled everything. And you ask your husband to kill it, and then without her looking, I go hide it somewhere because it's a garter snake. But anyway, she's like, we got to cut the head off the thing because I'm afraid of it. Well, you realize it's more afraid of you, but and I'm like, well, what was it? It was a rattlesnake. I'm like, well, it was either a copperhead or a rattlesnake. I said, have rattlers on it? She said, no, it was copperhead. Anything doesn't have rattlers on it's copperhead. So I'm like, it's a garter snake. So anyway, we're afraid of a snake, so we kill it. We're afraid of bees, so we who hasn't killed the bee nest in the late summer when you're mowing, they sting you. You kill them. We're afraid of them. So, my young children, they're teenagers now, they're going to start dating. So what do? I kill every avenue of that because I don't want to lose control. So I'm like, no, you're not. So, as Pharisees, we want to eliminate what we're afraid of. So, we want to let God move, but we want to control what God does when he moves. We want to control how he moves, which brings me to Between the Tiers, key point number one. If you're visiting, if you're new, we kind of roll with some key points around here. It's the way we like it. So, key point number one, Between the Tiers. What did the journey really look like? Deception. So our first, one of our first stops, we've already made a couple of stops, is deception. So when we look at it, here's the truth. Some people will be more bothered by your excitement than by your pain. I'm just going to pick on the addict because I can. Because, here's the thing about addicts. Addicts, I don't care how deep in addiction you are, you need help. But the person who's prideful, there's no depth that they can get to that ever makes them think they need help. So it's like, I love the addicts, but let's just say the addict, here's the thing is we're okay with him or with her. We're okay with them because you know what? They have a problem. But when they get saved, give their heart to the Lord, and they pull all that energy into worshiping the Lord, now you make me feel uncomfortable. So I kind of would rather support your pain than support your excitement. See, so we have to be careful. People will be more bothered by our excitement than by our pain. Jesus had raised a man from the dead. This should have been noised abroad, and I'm sure it was. It should have been front page news. Be like, I didn't even have to open the paper to see this one. You know what? Probably was the most talked about event in the land. But yet the Pharisees were afraid. Why are you afraid? Well, I'm afraid I'm going to lose control. I'm afraid I'm going to lose control of the temple. Well, Pastor, why don't you let the Holy Spirit move? Well, I've spent 12 years setting up how we conduct services. If the Holy Spirit moves, I'm gonna lose control. Well, shame on me. No, shame on you, Lord. Get out of here. We'll do it without you. So I want to know how many of our churches in this United States are saying, you know what, I can't have you do it the way you do it. Go freak people out and scare them off. Well, I'll do it my way then. You know what I think God says? Okay. See, let's go to verse 48 and let's just give it a 2025 twist to it just a little bit. If we allow the Spirit of the Lord to have total freedom in our services, then people will start noticing that. They'll start coming. They'll start drawing closer to Him and less to us. So you know what? Then they'll get more excited about their walk with the Lord. They'll have such an excitement that it'll bother me and I'll get convicted. I don't want to do that. See, the Pharisees were more concerned about the move of the Roman oppression than they were about the move of God. I'm a little concerned about the move of the Roman oppressors. We won't worry about the move of God. So what happened between the tears on this journey from funeral to party? Key point number 2, you can't keep a good dead man down. It's just hard to keep a good dead man down. So Mark chapter 12, verse 1, we're going to journey through this. Mark chapter 12, verse 1, 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. So we know this is a prior event. Now they're meeting at the house, hanging out. So let's jump down to verse 9. When the large crowd of the Jews learned that Jesus was there, they came not only on account of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. So now we've got the most popular person in the land and the second most popular person in the land. And not only do I need to see Jesus, but I need to see the thing that he's done. And not only do I need to kill what I'm afraid of, I need to kill what he's doing. See, sometimes we're not just satisfied with killing Jesus. We want to kill what he's doing. We want to kill what he's affecting. So let's go back to chapter 11. And let me just remind you that in the original text, there are no chapters, there are no verses. So it's not like you're going back to a different story. Let's go back to the last verse in chapter 11. In verse 57, now the chief priest and the Pharisees had given orders that if anyone knew where he was, you got to let us know so we can arrest him. So why do they want to arrest Jesus? So they can secretly, falsely try him in the middle of the night and condemn him and kill him before anybody can find out what's happening. So here's the problem. Here's the problem with somebody. You can't threaten to kill somebody who has already been dead one time. I mean, think about it. Okay, Lazarus, here's the deal. I'm coming to your house and I'm telling you, if you don't stop this gathering of miracles and miracle workers and people's lives being changed, we're going to put you in prison. I was in a tomb for 4 days. You think I care about your prison? That thing's going to be like a resort. Well, here, I tell you what, if you don't stop, then we're going to kill you. I've been dead before. What do you want? I care. You can't threaten. You can't keep a good dead man down. So Jesus and Lazarus, they're popular. And everybody wants to see Jesus and what he did. And the physical, walking, talking, what he did. So in other words, we could sum it up like this. They have the electoral college vote wrapped up. They have the popular vote wrapped up. And all they need to do now is just walk through the coronation. They just need to be sworn in. So in other words, we can't stop them. They're popular. But there are people in high places that want both of them dead. We don't want just Jesus dead. We want Lazarus dead. And here's what I love. Neither one of them seem to care. If you and I, if someone wanted us dead, I mean, think about it. what would you do? What would you do? You'd say, well, I'd just tell them, hey, I'm not going to run from you. I'm not doing it. But at the same time, you see somebody you don't like in aisle 4 at Walmart and you go. And you go over and look at the romaine noodles like you're really shopping for them, waiting on them to leave so you can go back to aisle 4 and get your pinto beans. Here, it's like I will stand in the face of the death threats, but you can't even talk to the guy or the person that you have a problem with. No, we would run. We would run and hide. But Jesus and Lazarus are like, I ain't running and hiding. I'm going to have a party in Lazarus' house. That's what I'm going to do. And I don't care who all knows about it. Because here's the thing. Everywhere Jesus is not, you can't hide it. It's popular. It's happening. People are gathering in. You can't hide from that. So what's between the tiers as the journey begins to start winding down toward the last tier? Key point number 3, a little grand theft. So Luke chapter 19, verse 28 through 31. He went on ahead, Jesus did, going up to Jerusalem. When he drew near to Bethpage and to Bethany at the Mount of called Olives, Olivet, or Mount of Olives, he sent 2 disciples. He said, I need you to go ahead of me and go into the village in front of you, and you're going to enter it, and you're going to find a colt, and that colt's going to be tied, and no one has ever sat on that colt. And I need you to untie that colt, and I need you to bring it here. Now, wait a minute. If anybody says anything to you, just tell them, I need it. The Lord needs it. Okay. So we have a donkey, which is a beast of burden. It's something that you load. It wasn't something that they used for meat. It wasn't an animal that they used for meat or to milk. It was an animal that was made to move cargo, to a beast of burden. It was a pack animal. It was an animal designed for that carrying of loads. By the way, I need you to get the one that's never been ridden. Now, I don't know, some of you didn't grow up on a farm like I did, but you can't just, there's no such thing as getting on an animal that has never been tamed. You know, I've got a couple sheep, they're about 50 pounds. I dare you to get on one. It ain't gonna happen. You got to train these things. My dad did that back when he was a young boy. He would break horses. Why do you have to break horses? Because you can't ride them wild. But for some reason, Jesus is going to ride into Jerusalem on a colt that nobody has ever sat on, because Jesus is not going to be second to anything or anybody. So Jesus is going to ride in on this colt. And by the way, nobody's ever sat on it. So it's a new model. So I need you to go in, I need you to get the new model, and it belongs to someone else, but never mind that. Just get it. Okay, so let's make something clear here. These are disciples, but they're not politically connected people. I mean, they're disciples. They're good men, but they're not politically connected. They're not Pharisees. They're not elected officials. They're not celebrities. Nobody knows who these guys are. And all of a sudden, you want me to walk up, untie a donkey and say, you know, this whole image here is me at 17 years old on Halloween night. Get it. Go, fast as you can. You know, because there's nothing more fun than to take somebody's lawn ornaments out of their yard and put them in somebody else's. And then roll them real good before you leave. But see, these are guys that, I don't know who you are, but the Lord has need of it. See, this charge from Jesus, it would look a little different today if we, just think about this. Now, Mace, I want you to take Jeff with you, and I need you to go to Cookville. I need you to turn left on Interstate Drive, and on the left down there, about maybe about a couple thousand yards, somewhere in that neighborhood, you're going to see a Toyota dealership. And there's a Toyota Tundra out front. Yeah, that cool looking one. You saw it, yeah. And it's out front. That thing is sweet. It's a new model. It's got 0 miles. Nobody's ever driven it. And it leather. You talk to it. It's awesome. I need you to go get that. And yeah, I'm going to need you to hotwire it. And you see, I'm always wondering what the second guy's role was. Was he the lookout? Yeah, it's like, Jeff's your lookout. So I need you to hotwire this thing. And while you're doing that, if anybody comes up to you and says, hey, What are you doing? Lord has need of it. It's okay. I mean, this is one of those don't try this at home thing. So, it's not going to work for you. So, and by the way, if you get one of these for me, I do like that nice orange one out front. So, riding through, Tina says, you didn't hear anything I said. Well, I was looking at an orange truck. It's cool. So here's the thing. Don't try this at home. But this little grand theft donkey. This is what was happening. John chapter 12, verses 12 through 15. So we find out what's happening. Why is it that they had to have that donkey? Why is it couldn't be a donkey? It had to be that one. The next day, verse 12, the next day, the large crowd that had come to the feast heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem. So they took branches of palms from palm trees and they went out to meet him and they cried out, Hosanna, that's giving praise to him, praising him. Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, even the King of Israel. So now they're making it even worse. They're calling him the king. And Jesus found a young donkey and sat on it, just as it is written. Verse 15, fear not, daughter of Zion. Behold, your king is coming, sitting on a donkey's colt. Now, John, in his gospel, he's writing about this, but he's telling us that Jesus is riding in on this donkey and that something was foretold. It was written. So if you say, well, it was written, that means it's already been told about. So what is it that has been written that we should know? And it's a prophecy from hundreds of years earlier. These are called messianic prophecies, which means the Messiah's prophecies. And he fulfilled every single one of them, didn't miss a one. Do you know that God's not sitting on the throne and saying to the angels, we were so close to making that prophecy land. Oh, let's do another one, see how it works. No, they're 100%. The Lord never says, well, I missed that one by a little bit, didn't I? No, 100% on mark all the time, same person. The odds of one person fulfilling just 3 messianic prophecies are uncalculatable. Don't know if that's a real word or not. I went to school in Sparta. Throw me a bone here. So anyway, struggle's real, guys. So to have, some say over 300, some say a hair under 300. That's a lot. Not one of them off mark. Jesus fulfilled every one of them. So what is it that is written then that's being fulfilled now? Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Man, that's just what we just read. O daughter of Jerusalem, behold, your king is coming to you, righteous and having salvation is he, humble and mounted on a donkey, the colt of a donkey, the foal of a donkey. In other words, the colt, a foal, never been ridden. Nobody's ever sat on it. Jesus is not going to be second, and it's already been said, and he's fulfilled that prophecy. Well, Jesus could have picked that just because he knew that. He could have picked a donkey just because he knew that was written, but God had a way to make sure that it was a colt that had never been broken. Go try that and see what happens. I'm just going to dare you. So Jesus fulfilled that scripture. So we have a little grand theft donkey. We have a little breaking of the palms and some laying of garments and shouting Hosanna. All this happened. Why? Because God said it would happen. I think sometimes we think some things in the Bible are random, but they're not. Because God said it would happen. And not only did God say it would happen, it happened like God said it would happen. So between the tears, let's kind of wind this journey down. Key point number 4, the last tier. We'll call it the last tour. I kind of like that. When Jesus drew near to Jerusalem, he looked up, and through his tears, he said this. Luke chapter 19, verses 41 through 44. And when he drew near to the city, he wept over it, saying, would that you, even, in other words, I wish you had known on this day the things that make for peace. But now they're hidden from your eyes. For the days will come upon you when your enemies will set up a barricade around you and surround you and hem you in on every side. He's speaking symbolically about the soul of Israel. He's speaking physically about the city of Israel. And they will tear down to the ground you and your children within you, and they will not leave one stone on top of another because you did not know the time of your visitation. So he's looking at the city. I mean, I can understand weeping and crying at your friend's funeral, but I mean, you're weeping and crying at your own celebration, because Jesus is saying, I just wish you could get it. I wish you could get it. See, in 70 AD, actually, when John is writing this, 70 AD has already passed, and this has already happened. 70 AD, Rome came in because Israel was trying to uprise and maybe claim their independence. They came in, they thwarted that, they attacked them, they cut olive trees because olive trees have a high content of oil in them. They stacked on the temple and they set the city on fire. It burned so hot that it literally melted the gold. The gold ran down through the stones, between the pavers on the stone floor. And afterwards, people came in and turned every one of those over to retrieve that gold. Took knives and kicked out the pavers so they could literally get the gold. Not one stone was left on top of another. Jesus wept because they just didn't get it. I wish you guys could get it. This is my father David's city. My father David crawled through the sewer system to take that city. It could not have been taken, but my father David did it. And this has been the city of Zion. This has been the city of David ever since, and I just grieve for it. The soul of Jerusalem, he grieved for it. How many of us is Jesus weeping over because we just don't get it? We just don't get it. How many of our friends and family is he weeping over because they just don't get it? And here's the problem. Are they seeing in us and interpreting Jesus and still not getting it? Then does a little bit of that responsibility land on us? See, I'm going to tell you, anybody can wave a palm branch and still not get it, because a lot of them did. So what is it that Jesus is looking for on this journey? What would make him not cry on this journey? What would make him not shed tears on this journey? Between tear to tear, what would make him not do this? Well, I think that it would be best if I showed it to you rather than explained it to you. I think I'll show you what Jesus was really looking for during this time.
Rising up to take their place with selfless faith, I see in me revival, stirring as we pray and seek. We're on our knees.
Thank you, Elle, I think maybe that's what Jesus is looking for. I think that is maybe what it looked like if we just go back to Bethany. And I think that's maybe what Mary's heart was that night. I think that whether you worship and give everything before the Lord or you pour everything before the Lord, that's the one thing that doesn't make him cry. He's not grieving over death. He's not grieving over the soul of a city. He's just being prepared for what is about to come. Nobody in that room. People were coming from everywhere to be in that house of Lazarus, to be where Jesus was, and nobody understood except for one person. Nobody understood. We will worship to the degree that we have an experience. Why was it that she worshiped to that degree? It's because that's the experience that she had with Jesus. Maybe sometimes we just need a deeper experience with him. Maybe we need to go boldly. Right where Jesus is. Maybe we need to push through some negative talk in order to get to the hem of his garment. Maybe we just need to be willing to throw everything away. So I want you to stand with me. And I want to ask, as a Christian society, what if we gave everything that we own? What if we gave everything that we own? What if we risked everything that we had for one moment in that room? What if, because that's what she did. That's exactly what she did. Mary poured everything that she had on Jesus because he was getting ready to pour everything that he had for her. And she knew it. So I want to ask you, first of all, do you have a relationship with Jesus that says, you know what, I'm okay with being in the room. You know what, right now, it's okay if one person pours everything on Jesus. Being in the room is awesome. And Jesus is not saying to you right now, I want everybody to be like Mary. He's saying, get in the room, and at some point, we'll get there. So let's get in the room. So if you say, look, I'm not even in the room with Jesus, we're going to pray. We're going to give you an opportunity to get in the room. Because that's where the presence of the Lord is. That's where connection is. That's where hospitality is. That's where worship and extravagant worship is. It wasn't just worship, it was extravagant worship. And if we can just get in the room, that's all that matters. So I'm going to give you that opportunity to get in the room. Because any other room's not going to work. It's got to be that room. So I want you to do me a favor. Bow your heads, close your eyes. We're going to pray a prayer that we pray out loud. And the reason we do it this way is so each of us know that we can ask the Lord into our heart. We can get in the room. So everybody will pray it out loud with you. You're not the only one. So let's all do it together. And I'll lead us. Let's do it in this fashion. Dear Jesus, thank you for inviting me in the room. I want to enter in, and I know it goes through you. So I'm asking you into my heart to forgive me of my sins. I repent of those sins. I confess those sins, and I receive salvation. I receive your salvation. And I thank you for allowing me access to that room where the believers are. Now I invite you to teach me how to be more like Mary. And I thank you for changing my life. Palm Sunday, 2025. In your name I pray. Amen.